The Seattle skyline was still wrapped in a blanket of gray. Morning clouds when Jake Turner parked his 12-year-old sedan outside the gleaming headquarters of Coleman Technologies. The 40-story glass tower reflected the city lights, standing as a symbol of innovation and success. Every morning, hundreds of employees rushed through its revolving doors, hoping to build the next groundbreaking product. Jake had worked there for nearly 8 years as a senior software engineer, earning the respect of his co-workers through talent and dedication rather than office politics. But while many employees admired the luxury cars parked in the executive garage, Jake's greatest source of pride sat safely at school across town, his 8-year-old daughter Emma. Since losing his wife to cancer 4 years earlier, every decision he made revolved around giving Emma a stable and loving life. He never chased promotions for prestige. He worked hard because someone at home believed he could fix anything. After dropping Emma at elementary school, with a packed lunch and a promise to attend her science fair that evening, Jake arrived at the office carrying a worn leather laptop bag. Inside it rested not only his computer, but also a crayon drawing Emma had made of the two of them, standing beneath a bright yellow sun. The picture remained tucked into the front pocket of his bag, as a daily reminder of why he kept pushing through long hours and impossible deadlines. Several co-workers greeted him warmly as he entered the engineering floor. They knew Jake as the person who quietly solved impossible coding problems without asking for recognition. Whenever deadlines became overwhelming, people naturally gathered around his desk because they trusted his calm thinking more than any management speech. The atmosphere inside Coleman Technologies was different that morning. Executives hurried through the hallways, carrying tablets and presentation folders. Large digital displays announced an emergency board meeting scheduled for 10 o'clock. Rumors spread quickly that Billionaire founder and CEO Richard Coleman planned to unveil an aggressive expansion strategy involving artificial intelligence, products that would place the company ahead of every competitor. Employees whispered excitedly, but Jake remained focused on reviewing performance reports from the company's newest software platform. As one of the lead architects behind the system, he knew its strengths better than anyone. He also understood its weaknesses, problems that could become disastrous if ignored for the sake of speed. Shortly before the meeting, Jake received an unexpected message instructing him to attend the executive presentation. Engineers rarely participated in boardroom discussions, making the invitation unusual. He collected his notes, adjusted his tie, and entered the spacious conference room overlooking downtown Seattle. Around the polished table sat company executives, investors, and department heads. At the far end stood Richard Coleman, whose reputation for brilliance was matched only by his enormous confidence. His tailored designer suit, expensive watch, and commanding voice reflected a man accustomed to getting immediate agreement from everyone. Around him, Coleman began presenting ambitious plans to launch the company's new artificial intelligence platform months ahead of schedule. Colorful graphs predicted billions of dollars in future revenue, while shareholders nodded with growing excitement. The CEO described the release as a once-in-a-generation opportunity that competitors would never see coming. As the presentation continued, Jake quietly reviewed the technical projections. Several critical security concerns had been excluded entirely. Launching early would expose customers to serious risks that the engineering team had not yet resolved. When Coleman invited questions, silence filled the room. No executive wanted to challenge the billionaire, whose decisions had built the company. Jake hesitated for only a moment before raising his hand. Every eye turned toward him, so Jake began respectfully. Our security testing isn't complete. If we release the platform now, we risk exposing sensitive customer data. We need more time. The room became noticeably quieter. Some executives looked down at their notes. Avoiding eye contact, others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Knowing Jake's concerns were technically accurate, Richard Coleman slowly closed his presentation remote and stared directly at him. The confident smile that had accompanied the presentation disappeared. Replaced by visible irritation, Jake remained standing, holding his report with steady hands. He wasn't trying to embarrass the CEO or block the company's success. He simply believed that protecting customers mattered more than impressing investors, unaware that his honest words were about to trigger the most important decision of his career. He waited calmly for the billionaire's response. As the tension inside the boardroom grew heavier with every passing second, the silence in the boardroom stretched for several long seconds. After Jake Turner finished speaking, every executive around the polished conference table understood he had raised a legitimate concern, yet no one dared support him. Billionaire CEO Richard Coleman slowly walked away from the large presentation screen and stopped directly across from Jake. His confident smile returned, but this time it carried a sharp edge. Folding his arms, he looked around the room, before fixing his eyes on the engineer, who had interrupted his ambitious announcement. So Coleman said with a sarcastic laugh, "The software engineer thinks he knows how to run a billion-dollar company." A few nervous chuckles echoed through the room. Though most employees remained silent, Jake refused to respond emotionally. He kept his report in his hands and answered calmly, "I'm not questioning your leadership, sir. I'm only pointing out that releasing the platform before security testing is complete could put thousands of customers at risk. We can still succeed if we give the team a few more weeks." Coleman's expression hardened. "Do you have any idea how much this delay would cost us?" He demanded. "Every day we wait, our competitors get closer. Business isn't won by people who hesitate." Jake nodded respectfully. "Business also isn't built on broken trust. If customers lose confidence in us, recovering that reputation will cost much more than waiting." Several board members quietly exchanged glances. They knew Jake had led many of the company's most successful engineering projects. His opinion carried weight among the technical teams, even if executives rarely admitted it. One senior vice president cleared his throat as if preparing to speak. But after seeing Coleman's glare, he quickly lowered his eyes back to the table. Coleman suddenly laughed again, louder this time. "If you're so uncomfortable with my decisions," he said, "then maybe this isn't the place for you." He paused deliberately before delivering the words everyone in the room would remember. "Quit if you dare." The challenge hung in the air like a thunderclap. Many employees expected Jake to apologize immediately. Others assumed he would quietly sit down and avoid further conflict. After all, few people willingly walked away from one of the highest-paying engineering jobs in Seattle, especially someone raising a child alone. Losing that salary would frighten almost anyone. Jake looked around the conference room. On the walls hung framed photographs, celebrating the company's biggest achievements. He recognized many of the projects because he had spent countless late nights building them, while missing birthday parties, family gatherings, and weekends at home. He remembered writing code from hospital waiting rooms while his wife fought cancer. He remembered returning to work only days after her funeral because medical bills had left him with no other choice. Every sacrifice had been made, with the hope of giving Emma a secure future. Instead of arguing, Jake quietly closed his laptop. The soft click echoed through the silent room. He gathered his notebook, picked up the framed photograph of Emma that always sat beside his computer, and slipped it carefully into his bag. Without rushing or showing anger, he disconnected his laptop charger, folded the cable neatly, and placed it inside the case. Every movement reflected calm confidence rather than frustration. The executives watched in disbelief. "You can't be serious," one manager whispered. Jake looked toward Richard Coleman. "You told me to quit if I dared," he replied evenly. "I won't help release something I believe could harm the people who trust this company. My daughter deserves to grow up, knowing her father chose integrity over comfort." No one spoke. Jake walked toward the conference room door, pausing only long enough to place his employee identification badge on the table in front of the CEO. "Thank you for the opportunities," he said sincerely. "I hope the company succeeds, but I can't stay where honesty is treated like disloyalty." With that, he opened the door and stepped into the hallway behind him. The boardroom remained frozen in stunned silence. Richard Coleman watched the door close, still convinced the engineer would return after cooling off. He had no idea that the man who had just walked away wasn't simply another employee. Jake Turner carried years of unmatched expertise, the respect of the entire engineering team, and the knowledge behind the company's most valuable technology. Within days, that single decision would send shockwaves through Coleman Technologies and change the future of everyone inside the building.